right, we're on episode 4 of Walk New York, and where are we heading today?
We are going to Chinatown, the Lower East Side, and the East Village, and all areas that we love, so it'll be fun to find out about them.
Yeah, so we're on the Upper West Side, that's where we live, and so we're going to be walking to the 2 line on 72nd Street, and we'll be taking that down to where?
We're going to get off on Park Place and then walk from there. We could have taken a closer, switched trains and gotten closer, but it's a nice day out, so we'll just take this and walk a little bit.
Yep, let's do it. So I'm Worth, so I'm on one of the streets, and that is the Avenue of the Strongest. And since I love healthy living and getting in the gym and everything, I kind of like that avenue. Love the lantern. So we are at the starting point, Worth and Baxter, 5 points. All right, so what makes this area called 5 points?
Well, it was the intersection of 5 big streets, but when they cleared out all the slums that were down here, it only left 2 streets remaining, Worth and Baxter.
Ah, nice. They have to call it 2 points now.
Right.
All right, we're at Columbus Park. All right, we made it to Chinatown. So I guess what happened is there was a lot of Chinese who came over they actually went over to California when they first came to this country. And they went there because they were helping to build the railroads, you know, and also the gold rush, and they were just doing things to make a better life. But there was a lot of then anti-Chinese sentiment going on in California, which is interesting because it's such a Democrat state now. But anyway, that they fled and went to the East Coast, where it was a lot friendlier to the Chinese people, and so they came here. So anyway, and then eventually they were able to gain citizenship after so many years and become.
1965.
Yeah, 1965 they became citizens, and now they are full citizens of the United States. We're on Pell Street, and this place is just packed. This is Doyer Street. It's a pretty long line to get into that restaurant. It's a very busy restaurant, but it does have a B rating, and that's usually not a good thing. You want to go to restaurants in New York that have an A rating, because that means they're healthy. There's no health violations or issues like that might happen. So the restaurant I just talked to you about, the Nam Hua Tea Parlor, it's the first dim sum restaurant here in New York City. And that place that says The Chemist, that's a speakeasy. So Robin, what's the deal with this square?
So Chatham Plaza, or Chatham Square, used to be the Times Square of New York City. So this was the first place where stores were allowed to have lit up signs so that you could see them at night. It was a place of entertainment and nightlife, and then we have the street called the Bowery, which is the longest street in Manhattan, the oldest street in Manhattan, and it goes from the bottom to the top. And it connected the lower Manhattan up to the farmland, which was up north. So this was the main part of New York City at one point. It was the Times Square.
Wow, pretty cool. So I've showed you this before, and I think there's 3 of these all through New York, and this is the very first one of the Jewish, Portuguese, and Spanish cemetery here in New York City. So what I think is cool is that this was here since the 1600s, and George Washington rode past it like 100 years after it was here, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah, it came here because Jews were leaving like Brazil to escape there, and the congregation that this is still, it stands today on the upper west side?
Yeah, it was Central Park West.
Central Park West.
Yeah.
It still exists today. It's the longest existing congregation on the Western Hemisphere.
Pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And it's right here in New York City. So this is actually a Catholic church built in 1836, and it was built around the time when there were a lot of Protestants that were actually attacking Catholic churches. So this is where Alfred E. Smith lived in the early 1900s, and he was what? He was
the governor of New York. He also ran for the presidency against Herbert Hoover. He was the first Catholic candidate to run, but he obviously lost to Herbert Hoover.
If you watch some of my other videos on walking New York, you notice that I talk about these signs, and these signs are all for filming. And so what they do is they close the street down so they can bring the trucks and the cameras and all the crew in, and they'll film. This one's for the Sham. I'm not sure what the Sham is, but a lot of times it's a movie. I guess a lot of times it's like LA Law, or not LA Law, but a lot of times it's some like FBI or Law and Order, or one of those type shows that are filmed here. And you can actually come out and watch them film it when they do it. It's pretty cool. All right, so we're on the corner of Henry and Oliver, and this is a Baptist church. And what's the deal with this Baptist church?
It's the Mariners Temple Baptist Church, and it served the sailors who were docked on the East River.
Ah, pretty cool. That is one long line for that dumpling place. Pretty long line, huh?
Yeah.
That must be pretty good dumplings, I guess.
Yeah, I can try it sometime.
Yeah, they have vegan ones, yeah. All right, we made it to Market Street. On the corner of Henry and Market Street here, this is the first Chinese Presbyterian church.
So that's the Manhattan Bridge, and it was built to alleviate some traffic from the Brooklyn Bridge.
This is the Eldridge Street Synagogue, and it's a museum now. Robin, what do you have to say about it?
So at its peak, there were 4,000 congregants, but Jewish people started getting wealthier and moved out of the Lower East Side. So it's no longer in use anymore, but now it's been not in use for many years, but they restored it and made it into a museum.
Cool. That's the Jarmulowsky Building. So what's with the Jarmulowsky Building?
So it held the banking interests of Alexander Jarmulowsky, who was the founder of the Eldridge Street Synagogue.
The loud city, loudest
Right.
city in the world.
But then it was a bank, and a lot of the Jewish people got loans there. But then after World War I, it closed, and now it's a luxury hotel.
Nice.
I have a table with that. Like, thank you.
All right, go. All right, thanks.
Yeah, she'll see you around.
Thank you. All right, Ron. Oh, okay, yeah, right next one. Okay. So that was a nice little snack. What'd you think? Yeah. All right, let's move on with the tour. So that building used to house the offices for the Jewish Daily Forward newspaper. But what is it now?
Now it's apartments.
Yeah. What else can you say about it?
This is where a lot of newspaper publishers were, and this was like the largest Jewish publication, and a lot of the Jewish people, it was their only resource for information back around World War I.
Pretty cool. Hopefully you heard all that because it's a little windy out. This corner of Hester and Ludlow was called, I guess, the pig market.
Right. It was where contractors to make goods out of fabrics would hire day laborers because the margins that they earned were so small, so they would just come here and hire really cheap labor right on this corner.
Ah. So that was the Ridley and Sons building, and it used to be a department store, but no more. This building is a tenement museum. So that building right up there near Delancey Street, that used to be the United States Bank, and now it's like the Hebrew, or was, then it became the Hebrew Publishing Company. It's pretty interesting. So because they made Allen Street wider, it exposed these businesses here. This is like the back of it. So the front of these businesses are actually on, what street is the front?
Orchard Street.
Orchard Street. And this is the back. So it exposed it when they actually widened Allen Street. So I just showed you, this is really empty behind it. There's nothing behind that. And it used to be a Roumanian synagogue, but no more. This is what, the only thing that stands for the Roumanian synagogue. Now it's like a school, and that's the area I showed you that's empty, that's been torn down. The name of that street? Beastie Boys. That is one old candy store. So this synagogue was built in 1850, and it's the only synagogue it's the oldest synagogue building that hasn't been demolished, and it's still here. And I think it's being used now as an art gallery, because I think it was a Spanish person bought it, and now it's being used as an art gallery. And next door, that tenement building actually has a statue, and that statue is of Lenin. I'm actually amazed that statue's still there. Got a statue of Lenin here in New York City. I had no idea. And I know some people might call it Houston Street because it looks like it's spelled that way, but it's actually Houston Street. There's the famous Katzenstone, and it always has a long line. that little area is Sara Roosevelt Park. She was actually the mother of Franklin D. Roosevelt. Pretty cool. All right, we just crossed over to the East Village. So that is the New York Marble Cemetery. So a lot of Germans moved in this area, and this was their social club until they moved uptown. So this is the third of those German buildings, and you could see that right there was a fire escape, you know, like you could walk down, and they wanted to make it look good, so they actually enclosed it. Pretty cool.
All these buildings around here are all theaters. They're off Broadway, but it's amazing how much theater actually goes on in this city, you know, off Broadway that people don't even know about. You could go see a different play every single night.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. All right, what can you tell us about this synagogue?
So this building behind us was a German Lutheran church. So we told you there were a lot of Germans in this area, so this was their church before they moved uptown to Yorkville. But once they moved uptown, they had a picnic every year and on Long Island, and they had a ferry that took them there. And so it was time for them all to get back together since they dispersed from this area. Fire broke out on the ferry, and over 1,000 people, many children, died in that. And because of that, a lot of this church was closed. It was then sold, and now it's a synagogue, but it was closed because the entire German population from down here, the East Village, all the way up to Yorkville, which is on the Upper East Side, was mourning because everybody knew somebody who died in that fire.
That was terrible,
So,
terrible fire.
Now this area, like, no Germans really lived here anymore.
So there is no church there anymore. It was built in 1892, but it burned down in 2020. So this building, you can see the lettering. It used to be an Actors Union building, but it closed in 2002. McSorley's is the oldest pub in New York City. So Peter Cooper built this building for the advancement of science, and he included women, men, everyone were able to use this building. This is a memorial to Peter. There's a few more things on the list of the book, if you get the book. Now we're going to end it here because it's starting to rain, and it's not fun to walk around when it's cold and wet. So hopefully you liked the video. If you did, make sure you give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. If you know anyone who could use videos like this, make sure you share it with them. And also, if you have any questions, comments, whatever, leave them in the comments and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And if you hold on, 2 videos will pop up any moment. You can click on any of those videos and you can continue your healthy living journey. And we'll see you next time.